Ask for Mo. Tell him Steve sent you.
Get to this next subject of the liberal mindset that will put things together that don't even belong together. And there was this young lady. I love her to life. Never love anybody to death. That's, you don't want them to die, you want them to live for everlasting life. So I love her to life. But when you get so much liberal thought slammed in your direction, you'll be swayed by that if you don't realize that's what's going on. And so she posts this video of this EMT, and this EMT is telling this story, horrible story, horrific story. It's a story about one of her responses as an EMT, and she shows up, hello, and police are there, and they're at this house, this degraded house, man, just dirt all over the floors, doors not locked, off the hinges and stuff. And the call came in from a 4-year-old child. They ended up going 2 houses down from there because the child didn't know it was a 4-year-old child, but they found it. And the baby, the 4-year-old was calling because the baby wasn't breathing. And so she gets in there, and so they get the baby, and they get response, get the baby breathing. And at that point, the crackhead mother and a crackhead lady, they come out of the back bedroom. What are you doing? They don't even know what's going on. No clue what's going on. And I'm gonna have to pull this out because I have to make this statement right. Okay, yeah. Oops, gotta be aware of where my camera is. Okay. Let me just review this real, because I want to make sure I say the quote right. All right. So she says they get the baby. You know, the crackhead dad finally comes out to the ambulance, and he's trying to take the baby back, and the police pull him away so that way they can take the baby to the hospital. Get the baby to the hospital. Get the baby to the hospital. The doctors work on baby is good. Now, what happens? They return the baby to the crack house, to the crack mother, who was not taking care of her kids, and that baby died the next day. So, in her telling you this story, which was obviously something that happened before the overturning of Roe v. Wade, before the perspective of, oh, they've taken away the women's rights. Well, constitutionally, there is no women's rights to abortion, and that puts it in the purview of the states and local community.
Ask for Mo. Tell him Steve sent you.
And that's how our system of government works. You can't create just by some kind of ruling and say that there's something in the Constitution that's not in the Constitution. It was a constitutional ruling which was done right this time and done wrong by activist judges back in '73. But her last statement was, and I'm going to stop so I can read it, of this EMT trying to prove a point that she literally actually made a different point, or maybe not a point at all, or the point that liberalism is a mind freak on people and they can't think straight. Her last statement was, you can force a woman to have a baby, but you can't make them be parents. Let me see this. And it's obvious here, there's obvious here in this story and in the time period that no one forced this crack mama to have the 4-year-old or this baby. It doesn't make sense. What makes the point of this story would be, how did this baby and this 4-year-old not be taken away from the crackhead mama by CPS? Where was Child Protective Services? Where were the doctors? Where was this EMT? They're supposed to write a report on these things, and CPS is supposed to come in, and they were supposed to hold that baby based on all the evidence by the police, by the EMT, and by the doctors. That baby should never have been returned there. That's the point of this story, not the fact, because nobody forced this woman to have this baby. So the point that my friend was trying to make for abortion, for choice, doesn't apply to this. And there's the liberal mindset, applying things that don't apply as though they apply. That's the problem. That's the problem. This has nothing to do, this has nothing to do with pro-life or pro-choice. It has everything to do with child falling through the safety cracks, the safety net for child abuse and deadly situations. This doesn't make a point for pro-choice. It makes the point that those that are part of the safety net failed and should be held accountable, as they are responsible as they're part of their job. The cop, this EMT, the doctors need to do that. Let me reiterate that Roe v. Wade was a constitutional issue. The Constitution spells out what we are, what our inalienable rights are. Oh, we got an Amazon guy taking a break. Got to get his Amazon orders in. We did 2 miles today. That was awesome. Okay. The rights or purview of the federal government, and what is the jurisdiction or purview of the states. That's what Roe v. Wade is about. Abortion isn't a constitutional right as laid out in the Constitution. Okay, in the Constitution, the Supreme Court made a constitutional right where there was, in 1973, that court made a constitutional right where there was no constitutional right. And this ruling simply was corrected as an error constitutionally. That's constitutional law. That's Constitution 101. Now you can lobby. Let me get this. Let me tell you, pro-choicers. You can lobby. You can lobby and gain support and add an amendment to the Constitution. There's 2 ways to do it. 1, a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress, and 2, convention of states. 2/3 of the states coming together for this express purpose and call for this to be put in place as the federal legislature, put in place by the federal legislature. The convention of states is the ruling factor in this. States do have the power over the federal government when 2/3 of the states get together. So if you want a constitutional amendment, see, Roe v. Wade was not a constitutional amendment. It just added a right where there was no right. It just added a right where there was no right. And so what this EMT just proved is that we have a failure in child protective services, in protecting the born child. This is all about a born child. This had nothing to do with anybody being forced to have a child. The crack lady, which I hope if she's still alive that she'll find Jesus, and the kids find, and the 4-year-old finds Jesus, and that man finds Jesus, and they get their lives straight. But it has nothing to do with Roe v. Wade. It has everything to do with a society that failed a child, a baby, a born baby in this world, and put it back in the hands of those that put that baby in a place where it wasn't breathing, then was breathing, had to go to the hospital, and they put it back, that put that baby back in the hands of the people that caused the problem. That's where the failure was. Has nothing to do with Roe v. Wade, Child Protective Services. And the church has to step up and say, yes, we're believing for life in the womb to come out of the womb. But let me tell you something. If the church isn't ready to stand up and say, we'll adopt these babies, we'll take care of these babies, what have you done? What have you really done? So, and then you have to look at the fact that you have to look at this as type and shadow, because the real abortion problem is all those born people that are not born again, and they are going to be aborted to an eternity in hell. Think about that. That's kind of like a somber way but we kind of started that with a correction on that one preacher, bringing that reality of how many people are actually going to end up in hell in America because they preach such a false doctrine of how to live as kingdom people. So let that be a lesson. Let's get ourselves girded with the truth, put on the breastplate of righteousness, put on the preparation of the gospel of peace, and let's have that shield of faith, and get that the word of the Spirit, and that which is the sword which is the sword, and let's get into that spirit of prayer, and let's make a difference and bring people that are born to being born again and saving them in eternal life. I love you. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.